Me and my buttons. I have such a struggle with my buttons. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Adventures in Truth Livecast. My name is Jim Case, and I am your host today. I am excited to be here and excited for this show. Today, we're going to talk about the commodity of fear and how do I stop giving energy to that experience. Super excited about my guest today. Cyndi Dale is going to be joining me here shortly. I'm going to take a sec here to tell you a little bit about Cyndi before I bring her out and before we talk a little bit about the book. So here we go. Cyndi's got a new book coming out. Cyndi Dale is an internationally renowned author, speaker, healer, and business consultant, and the author of 27 books about energy medicine, intuition, and spirituality. In addition, she has worked with over 70,000 clients and presented hundreds of seminars and workshops across the Americas in Russia, England, Wales, Amsterdam, Iceland, Costa Rica, Belize, Morocco, Peru, Scotland, and more. She is also a favored teacher and healer for China, leading in-person and online classes, and has been published in over 17 languages. Feeling very fortunate to have her with us today. She'll be joining us in just a moment. And before we begin, it's Book Week celebration, guys. My book is live. I am officially a published author, but more importantly, and really the whole drive of this is the message of the book. Fear is a choice. Fear is a choice will change your life. And why I know that is because when you change your relationship with fear, it changes everything. And what I know about this book is it will guide you through the understanding of the evolution of fear within the human experience. And it'll talk about how we're entrained into the fear experience from very early on, and how that fear experience is propagated in our belief systems and our experience. And then most importantly, how do we disengage from that consciousness? How do we shift state in a way that allows us to change the vibration of where we are to the vibration of where we want to be that is different and greater than the experience of fear? So I encourage you, please go to www.adventuresintruth.com. You'll see all of the links there for Barnes & Noble and for Amazon and for Kindle and for IndieBound. And I guarantee you'll enjoy the book, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. I appreciate all of you who have already ordered. The pre-orders were wonderful, and I'm super excited about it. For those of you who have helped with reviews, thank you, and I'm appreciating those who are still coming in. I know that you're working on them, but the support means the world, and it helps in unimaginable ways to help move this work into the world in great ways. So thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. We're going to dive into the show right after this quick break. And we are back. Hi, everybody, and hi, Cyndi. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I am terrific. I'm really, really great because I'm here, and we're going to talk about fear. But more than talking about fear, we're going to talk about how to not choose fear, which I love.
Yes. Always the way to go. It's an interesting thing, especially having written a book about it, and where my understanding of it is that there's so many places that you can get caught, that you can get hooked, or that you can get, because we don't recognize all of the places and ways that it shows up. So it's great when we can talk about fear without creating fear.
Without feeling scared to talk about the fear. You know, and that's one thing I taught my boys to do too when they were young, is be okay to talk about it and say, Mom, I'm kind of scared about this, or I'm nervous about this, because sometimes you have to kind of move through it, not, you can't just plow through everything. And, then the seasonal part. So, it's such an important, more than timely topic these days.
Yes, well, and the thrust of your work and your new book and your all the books that you've written have a similar or moving theme around addressing our energy and addressing fear and all of those things, as I understand, correct?
Yeah, they're all about energy. And of course, that I could be writing about turnips, and it could be about energy, because energy is everything, right?
Everything.
I know. So that doesn't really narrow down the scope of what I do. But my specialty is more what these days is called the subtle energy. When I was getting
Hmm.
trained in the healing arts, it was called psychic energy, then quantum, then subtle. So we put different faces on it, but
Yeah.
it's that invisible stuff, and fear is typically invisible. We can catch it, we can send it to people, and most of the time we don't even know we're affected by it, unfortunately.
Very true. Very true. And so, thinking about the theme of this show, the commodity of fear really resonated to me because, to me, it seems like that's what it's become. Where it seemed, as a younger person growing up, and especially as I go back and think about my life, there's a lot of places where you realize that fear is part of the entrainment process, where literally from the time you're conceived, there's an entrainment going on because your energy. And so all of the input from the parents, all of the input from the world outside, all the reaction that the parents are having is all you're having that effect. So being able to understand how that evolves so that you can make different choices, learn how to not resonate in that fashion. And that, I think, what you're talking about with subtle energy is astronomical, because that's really the biggest hurdle to help people get past, is recognizing the energy, that it's all energy, and that it's all, everything we do is just layers of energy.
It is. It's onion skins of energy. And when we talk about something like fear or specific fears, by the time we're conceived, we have fears laden into our system. We inherit at least 14 generations of our ancestors' memories. And, I've heard it explained before that the way the brain works, the neurological system works, is, but from thousands of years ago, we didn't really pay attention to the good stuff because that couldn't eat you, right?
Right.
You're getting
Right.
eaten by the saber-toothed tiger, not by the little monkey staring at you with the coconut. Maybe you could convince it to throw down a coconut, but that's only helpful.
Yeah.
So we're sort of biologically set up to be scared and to believe fear is a good thing, and we inherit all this stuff. And like you
Mhm.
said, it's a commodity because we buy into it. And then, well, this is interesting, Jim, because we turn around and buy it. I mean, when I was growing up, it was sort of like, well, Mom, aren't we going to get Pepsodent toothpaste? Because otherwise I'm scared I'm not going to have white enough teeth. I
Yeah.
mean, we have our purchase power oriented toward fear too.
Yeah. All of it. It's and again, I always like to reiterate to the viewers that this is not about bashing anything. This is not about making anything wrong. It's just about dealing with the reality that we live in, and that recognizing that we have a choice every day and every time and every way to do something different that isn't expending our energy toward that commodity. That we can focus in love, and focusing in love is a whole other realm of experience, but a one that's vibrationally very different from the fear
It's
commodity.
vibrationally different, and it heals fear too. So it's okay if a fear comes up. I always like to remind people there's healthy fears. I mean, fear from a body point of view is just the message something may not be safe, or at least you're perceiving it as not safe. So move forward, move backward, move to the sides, but then you're supposed to stop being scared. Then you should be done. We're really supposed to be more in our parasympathetic nervous system, in the relaxed, chill. I'm a type A personality, but I can still be a B personality when it
Yeah.
comes to fear until I need to be scared. I act. I'm done. And honestly, how many people get to say they leave the fear state? Really, 99.99% of us hardly ever do.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of that is another misunderstanding is when you learn to resonate outside of fear, it doesn't mean that fear goes away. It simply means that fear becomes an object in the field of your awareness that you can choose to engage or not engage, instead of it being on you. And sometimes, like you were saying, sometimes you just have to move through it because it's on you. The belief system or the concept or some file in the subconscious registered something, and now suddenly you're consumed, and you're going, what's going on?
I
When you understand the difference, you can begin to move it back out into the field of your awareness. But
Well, right. And I always like to remind myself a belief is an opinion. What
yeah.
is the name of your show, Adventures in Truth with a capital T?
Mhm.
Most beliefs are just opinions. They're not big T truths. They're
Right.
really not. And I love how you're talking about that sort of witness mentality when you can move
Mhm.
enough away, because quantum physics talks about that. I mean, really basically that, two objects can't occupy the same space. Well, I see that happen all the time, right? But whatever. But in the conceptual framework, I mean, come on, my hand is in a glove. They're sort of in the same space, but we can
Yes.
argue that later. But in order to have just one show up, the whole idea is that you have to separate out, you observe, then you stop being part of what's happening, but you also can choose what's going to happen. And at the very least, you can choose your perception. I mean, so
Yes.
much of fear really is just perception. I remind myself of that every day. Cyndi, these are your perceptions. That doesn't mean they're accurate.
Yes. Yeah, beautiful. Well said. And that is a perfect introduction for where we can jump off on the other side of the break. I like to, at the start of the show, get us all geared up and focused, and then take a moment to focus and get into our breath and get into being present in this moment so that we can absorb as much of this conversation as possible. And that, you and I obviously are dialed in and connected to this conversation, but that as we share that those listening are also being able to receive it to the best of their ability. So we're not going to take a break. I'm just going to move into this segment, and I'm going to have you go into the green room for a minute while that happens. Enjoy the meditation, and we'll be back on the other side. All right, guys. So let's start with a little foundational information, which we talk about all the time. In my uh, pyramid of wellness, as I'm developing this new concept in wellness, um, one of the key things of that wellness program is that it's built on the things that we do all day long, every day, the things that we do the most of. So we started with the breath, and we think, and we sleep, and we eat, and we work, and we do all of these different things. Depending on how you move up that pyramid will depend on what your vibration is doing, depending on how you will move up the pyramid and how far up that pyramid you can move in the context of the energy that you're carrying, the energy, the core vibration that you're working with. So for this purpose and for this short moment, I focus on the breath, because to me, at the base of the pyramid, the foundation of the pyramid is breath. Breath is the thing we do all day, every day. And that when you can build a relationship with breathing, when you can understand the impact that breath has, you set the foundation for powerful transformation. Because when you understand the power of breath, chi, prana, life force, whatever you want to call it, you're taking it in constantly. But when we're conscious of it, you then begin being able to direct the breath and focus the breath in a way that then begins to enroll the mind in the process of that alignment, which is different from being no breathing and thinking all the time. We'll get into that at another point, which we have on previous episodes. But for today, we're going to focus on the breath. And so what I'd like you to do is right now, just get present in this moment, feel your feet on the floor, whatever relaxed position you can be in wherever you are. Let yourself drift into your eyes, gently close, maybe into a soft focus if you can't close all the way. And I want you to take your awareness and I want you to focus it and bring it into your body. So any external stimulation, any external stuff, let your eyes close, bring your awareness into your body. Focus that awareness right now into your chest. Just bring all of that awareness into the heart space, into the chest, and observe that experience. Let the awareness travel down inside your body. Be aware of the inside of your being and of your body. Starting at your feet, let that awareness travel through the feet and the ankles and up the calves and through the knees and through the thighs and the hips. And as you feel and experience that awareness, be aware of how that feels. What are you experiencing on the inside of you? Is there discomfort? Is there comfort? Is there ease? Is there anything distracting you? As you allow the awareness to come through the hips and up the spine and through the middle of your body and through your torso, just allow that awareness to continue to spread and be aware of what you are experiencing without judgment, without assessment. Just be aware of it. Let it come up and through your head. Feel the inside of your head. Feel the inside of your neck and shoulders. That's a common place to hold energy. If you feel a little tension or you feel a little uncomfortableness, just breathe into that space. Just breathe life into that space and let it expand. And once again, I want you to focus that energy into the heart space as we go into the breathing. As we go into the breathing, we're going to breathe in a pattern. I'm going to have you inhale completely to a count of 4. And when you reach the top of that breath, I want you to rest in the fullness for just a second. And then we're going to leave the air. We're going to purge out of the mouth, breathing out 6 counts so that we can purge all of the stale air and energy that's there and move it out, getting ready for new energy and new life. And then at the bottom, at the void, we'll pause and find comfort, ease in the void. And then we'll engage the breath again, filling completely, raising to the top, resting, releasing out of the mouth to 6, and then at the bottom. So keeping that focus internal, keeping that focus in the breath, I want you to be aware of what your breath is doing at this very moment. How does your breath feel? Do you find your breath just in the front of your chest? Do you find your breath goes to your belly? Do you find your breath expanding, or does it just feel like lifting? What is the experience of how you breathe? Again, an important part of becoming conscious, becoming and building a relationship with your breath. How do you breathe and how can you shift that breath to expand? And now we'll begin. We're beginning with an inhale through the nose, 2, 3, 4, and we're resting at the top and relaxing. And now releasing from the mouth, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. And then rest in that emptiness just for a second. Engage the lungs. Inhale, 2, filling all the way, 4, and then relaxing in fullness. And now release from the mouth, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and resting in the emptiness. Engaging in inhaling, 2, 3, 4, feeling full at the top and relaxing into fullness, and releasing from the mouth, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, resting in the void. And now engaging in inhaling the last time together, 2, 3, 4, at the top, we're full. And then we release from the mouth, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and allowing yourself to rest into that void again. Continuing the breath yourself now for a few more rounds, letting that inhale fill you completely. Carrying on at that top, feeling full and relaxed. And as you come down, releasing all of that stale energy and air, just releasing it, purging it, letting it go. And coming to the bottom in that void space, in that emptiness, and just relaxing into it, being comfortable as you continue to breathe. I want you to take in these words, just let them flow through you. Just feel, experience. I am the evolution of God realized as matter. I inform and guide that expression as the pure expression of God. I show up as God. I connect as God. I align as God. I am creation realized. And from that, I create, expand, and engage. I am. Let that wash over you. Let that fill you as you continue with your breath. And as you finish that cycle of breath, allow your awareness to come outside again, focusing into this time and space, being present now, fully ready and engaged with whatever you're going to do. And just feel that presence. And we'll bring Cyndi back as we carry on for another segment here. Welcome back.
Thank you. I feel wonderful. Kind
Excellent.
of deep and drifty at the same time.
Deep and drifty and grounded. So the commodity of fear. So I don't want to spend, I think we agree, and I think that most anybody who's going to be watching is understanding that, because we talk about this a lot. The challenges with being in a space of fear consciousness. I have this sort of perception or this experience of, because it's all about energy, fear resonates and vibrates at a frequency that's much lower than love, obviously, and lower, higher. That's about frequency, not about good, bad, or indifferent. It's frequency. So those vibrations, the trick to not being at the effect of the commodity, not being the person who's handing out your energy to the commodity, is shifting state. It's being able to say, okay, I get it, I'm here. How do I get to here? How do I get to that greater resonation? And there are a ton of tools that we're going to go into a little bit later of ways that you can shift your own state in order to create moving from the consciousness of fear to the consciousness of opportunity, is how I like to look at it. And that opportunity can be love, it can be any number of things. But when you raise that vibration and you open that doorway, you've gone from a limited perspective of what fear allows you to see to the potential and opportunity that's available to you that you didn't even know was there because your perception was so closed based on fear. So that's why the commodity aspect of this is so important. But what we want to talk about there is how do we identify, how do we acknowledge that and still be able to make the changes we need to make?
Yeah, and that's the question, because sometimes for some of us, we're scared to acknowledge the feeling of fear, the frequency of fear, because we think it's going to suffocate us. And actually the opposite happens for me. If I can sense that vibration, I know the frequency of fear within my own body. So I think it's really important to be very body-based. We can't do this just in the head. We have in the body, the soul in the body. And from an energy perspective, the more challenging of our issues, the ones that we acquired when we were the youngest, those are the lowest in our body. The psychological issues are sort of in the middle. The spiritual issues are more atop, but most of us don't like to go into the bottom part of our body because that's where our deepest abandonment issues are, our deepest rejection issues, our deepest fears, which might have felt true when we were in the womb, or 1 or 5 or 10. But as you know, Jim, they're not true now. Right. So we've got to go in order to kind of bust up those frequencies. Sometimes people then say, well, then let's look for love from the outside, which is very valuable, right?
Yeah.
But we got to find it on the inside because it's in there. Yeah, yes. I like to talk about how there's 2 neurological systems. The deepest of them is called the analog. And this is how our ancestors, our long ago ancestors functioned. The analog neurology is of connection and oneness. You can get a dream. You can talk to a spirit. You know what somebody else is feeling. Nature speaks to you. It wraps itself around you and creates nests for you. That's the deepest system in our body. And most of us function digitally, which is like dot, 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 dot. And that's where all the fears sort of kind of rejuvenate and reproduce. So the deeper we go inside, I think the more connection we get, which is one way to bust through the lie of fear too.
Yes. And I love what you're saying, because it speaks to, it's so wonderful having this conversation, because it's obvious that we come from a very similar perspective. And as I'm listening to you, in my mind, I'm going, okay, translate translate, because you have a language set that you built in your own life experience, and I have a language set. And so it's an amazing process to sit here and go, wow, okay, now that correlates. Good. That's great. Now, where do we go with this from here? And that we can both share this, and it's reaching an even greater multitude of people, because those that resonate with the language that you have adopted and the language that I have adopted may not be the same people. And how cool is it that we get to have that experience together and still communicate the same thing? I kind of diverged for a moment there.
I love that though. But it can also mean that each of us can find our own place of depth where there's light and there is no fear. And maybe that's in a way that we hum to ourselves,
Yes.
right? Or maybe it's where we go out to that willow tree or that oak tree, and then we feel the rootedness and the connectedness. So I just love that idea, like find your language of the love, of the connection, and there is no fear.
And there is. And that's that connection to the body. I love that so much, because one of the things that makes us more conscious, and this is where I have to laugh at this sometimes, because I say this regularly, and I hear it regularly when people feel confused about what it is to become conscious. To me, it's simply that what is below the conscious threshold. So that's the warehouse of the subconscious. Every bit of it that sits in the wherever it sits in your energy field, that becomes the stuff that you get to learn about. And we have this viewpoint, I think many people get a viewpoint that what's there is so horrible and so unpleasant and so ugly that I could never confront it, when really that thought is simply the guard at the gate saying, you don't want to go here because you're not going to like it. And it's just there to, it's the survival mechanism. It's the thing that's just there to protect you, but it's been misinformed. In the sense that, because I think I see the ego as the consciousness that runs the physical vessel, and that the challenge that we have in the world now is that we have given the keys to our multi-billion-dollar corporation to an 8-year-old and said, hey, good luck with that, and let me know how it works out. So when you become conscious, when you allow yourself to settle into that and begin to become conscious, you are in the process. When something you didn't know becomes something you now know, you are becoming conscious. That is a change in energy. That is a change in vibration. That is a change in everything that you are. Because as we talked about earlier, you were mentioning the DNA. Again, languages. DNA, in my understanding, is everything that we have been, everything we are, and everything we ever will be. It's all right there for us. And that as we move up that spiral of life, as we go through this process, as our energy evolves, the things that don't or are not resonating with the core vibration of who we are have to change. They have to change. It's physics. It has to change.
I think of the same way you talk about core vibration. I use a term, original energetic signature. Isn't that a great term?
I love that.
Your signature is who you are. And I have a really good friend. He's so brilliant. I understand 1 out of every 1,000 words. Okay. And then I have to put it together. But he talks about that everything has its original signature. And if you start to act too separate from that, or hang around people too different from that, or the earth has its own original signature. So if you're polluting, you're creating ingredients that differ from the original signature. And the greater the gap, the greater the challenges. So we're beholden to that. We are accomplished at life, but we want to be accomplished at ourselves, right? And going, that doesn't fit me. That doesn't suit me. This does, this does, this does. And as the gaps narrow, I think fear squeezes out. We don't need any fear. The positive part of fear could be, hey, there's still a gap, but you narrow that gap, you do something a little bit closer to who you really are, and the fear can start to go away too.
Yep, love that. And this is a perfect place. We're gonna segue now into the Cyndi segment. We're gonna do a quick transition. When we come back, Cyndi's gonna share a little bit about what she's got going on, and just get to let you know her a little better and what she's offering, and all that kind of good stuff. So we're going to be right back right after this.
I get to do a Cyndi segment. I almost said my name wrong. I'm so happy to meet all of you. Even if I can't see you, I can feel your hearts, and that means an awful lot to me. I do energy work. I do intuitive work. I've been blessed to be walking this path for about 30 years. I was one of those people who, as a child, could see spirits and colors, and the world was brand new, full of fairies and greatness. And that's really what I like to bring to my clients in my teachings. I have a lot of classes going on. I'm teaching a fantastic class called Amplify Essential Energy, basically, for the Shift Network. And I have a long-term apprenticeship program that people can get trained in, and a college class. Just go to cindydale.com, and you can check all that out. To me, what's most important about what I'm doing and what I'm offering is that I get to keep growing, and every time I learn something, I can offer it. And every time somebody else learns something, they can offer it to me as well. So I'm happy to have you just look at my website, cindydale.com, check out some of my books. My newest one, which is perfectly timed for today, is Energy Healing for Trauma, Stress, and Chronic Illness. But you don't have to be sick in order to read it. You can be wanting to be in that place of your original signature, your original self, and bring the blessing that you are to the rest of the world. So thank you for this time, Jim. It was fun to talk with the people who know you so well already.
That was good. I like that. How'd that feel for you? Did you get it? Felt like you got connected?
Yeah, I can feel people out there. You get people with heart. I mean, there's just heart and this sort of splendidness that everybody listening, or everybody who's going to listen, I think, is really dedicated to bringing to the world. You can kind of feel it like little flower buds, and or big flower buds in trees and elms and whatever it is that we all represent. It's a good way to populate the landscape of the planet, I think.
Absolutely is. I love that visual too, because it's something that happens when I do my meditation at night. I don't know if you're familiar with the medicine Buddha.
I am.
I love that meditation, and I love that it gives me an opportunity to really consciously expand and reach out, which is something earlier that was never something I could wrap my brain around. And as I changed my relationship with fear, I no longer found myself reflecting negatively on myself, no longer find myself reflecting, oh gosh, maybe I'm not enough, maybe I'm not, maybe, whatever all that blah, blah, blah is. But now it's a whole different animal. And I say, wait, I have a ton of love to give. I have a ton of love to share. My energy can get so huge. And that, even of anything else, that in of itself is an extraordinary experience that changes your life. It really does. So this segment, I really want to talk about changing our relationship with fear. We now, we talked about, we understand the commodity of it. We understand the evolution to some degree. But now we want to look at, okay, now I want to change my relationship. How am I going to do that? What do you?
Well, there's the $1 million question too, right? So it requires not being scared of being scared when we are scared. All right. So, I mean, usually, or at least when I was growing up and into my early adulthood years, I didn't want to feel scared. So I would automatically tense up when I was scared, which just makes it more dramatic and more challenging to figure out if there's a real reason to be scared or if it's an automatic. So I know if I do feel a little glimmer of tension or fear, I tell myself to relax. I just go, like you do. I breathe. I go,
Mhm.
oh, there's this sensation. So I may start by labeling it fear, but I quickly try to turn it into a different term rather than just say, oh, I'm scared. I start to go, there's a sensation. I have an awareness. And now I'm more open to really figuring out what it is, if it's mine or not, because we absorb from other
Mhm.
people, if it's useful or not, if it's just a construct, if it's something we need to heal or something we just need to ignore. So I try to just be okay with it, relax, and begin by unlabeling it as fear when it's
Mhm.
possible to do that and just go, I'm sensing something.
That's great. I want to share a story that you're reminding me of. So a couple days ago, we went up to a buddy of mine and I went up to Minturn, which is really up in the Rockies, and we were going up to look at color. And so we were up there, we were wandering on the path, and as we were coming back down the path, I see out of the corner of my eye movement, and I turn, and a good ways away, but right over there is a bear, and all I see is his butt, and I see his butt barreling through the trees, running away from us, and it immediately stirred up that fight or flight. There's an immediate which is a different thing to me than fear. Fight or flight, the survival mechanism is a different animal, which we can get into in a little while here. But what happened for me in that moment was extraordinary because what I wanted to do was follow the bear because it was the first time I'd ever seen a bear in the wild in Colorado. I really wanted to see the bear because I only saw his butt. And so I've been here for 2 years and I'm like, oh, I want to see the bear. So we're walking on the path and I'm having that dichotomy rifle through me. Part of me is like, are you out of your freaking mind? How many videos have you watched of stupid people going after wild animals? How many? And I'm like, and I'm hearing that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not trying to get in his space. I just want to be able to see it a little better. So I'm walking and I'm just, we're walking together. And the way the path went, I knew the bear was in this section over here and the path was going this way. So I'm like, I'm going up the path. If nothing else, I want to see if I can see. And in that moment, that whole idea of walking with the idea of the fear without surrendering to the energy of the fear. So it keeps me in alert. It keeps me aware. It keeps me like, okay, there's something here I need to pay attention to, but I don't have to stop my life for it. I can say, okay, and don't you know that 20 yards down the path, the bear was there. And we got to the point, our phones were right here. We were just about there, and something happened, and he looked at us. We got a full facial, cute little ears, medium-sized bear, and then he just flew, and it was gone. And we watched him run across the field, and we never saw him again. But I got to see my bear. But besides that, the idea of how you change that relationship, it doesn't tell me what to do. It informs me so that I can make choices about what I want to do. Big difference in the process to me.
That is
Um,
awareness, choices. Well, like you're saying, awareness, information, choices. I often use the word sensation. I get the sense
mm,
of it and then get that sense, kind of, and then I open it up to how am I to be with this? It's very similar to what you do. I just use that phrase in my head, how am I to be with this? And it reminds me, your bear story kind of reminds me sort of a different circumstance, but it has the same feeling to it that years ago, I was married to the father of my youngest son, and he's an inner city minister. And I'm not into the go through the streets trying to turn people to Jesus. Okay. But that's not my thing. I have no idea why I was with him in his ministry group that day. I have no idea, but I was. So this is what they're doing, and they're all men. And I'm this like small blonde with them. And we pass into this alley, and there's these two 12 or 13-year-old boys with broken Coca-Cola bottles, and they're screaming and yelling and gouging at each other. And
oh my
I
God.
look at the men. No, I know. I look at the men, and they're just statues. You can tell they're terrified because who wants them coming at you too? I mean, are they on drugs or
Mm-hmm.
what's going on? And I felt that sense of the fear. I was able to turn it into a sensation. And I somehow just went to myself, how am I to be with this? And I was filled with some kind of presence that wasn't little old me. I mean, whatever you want to call it, Holy
Mhm.
Spirit, higher power, God the Mother, because I got filled and I stood up to them. I am not in charge, by the way, of myself. Okay? Let's just be clear. I'm filled. And I said to them, "What would your mother say?" I can't believe I said that. And like, then I woke up and I'm like, "What did I just say?" And the men are like, "What did she just do?" The boys dropped the bottles. They dropped the bottles. And we all stood there.
Wow.
Nobody knew what to do. And the police came. So, because like I was like, wow, this little asking for help really works. It really works.
It truly
So
does.
there's all kinds of things that can happen when you let yourself not get fixated on the narrowness of the fear either.
Yes, well said. I am going to take another quick break because I have to do my commercial. Because I like to do my commercial, but I want to talk about this more, about changing the relationship with fear and understanding that there are unlimited possibilities for how we can go about that. But let's nail some down so we can really give the viewers some concrete kind of situations where you can easily shift and learn how to do that. So as you practice it, you get stronger at it. So we will be back in just a moment. Once again, I'm going to push my button. All right, we're back. I just love my bells and whistles. I get such a kick out of them.
Well, I'm really jealous.
I just love that. And those actually, many of those, actually, all of those were created by Lauren Michael Harris, who is a producer for E360 TV, and he did just a spectacular job of putting those together for me. So we are continuing on our conversation here, and so we were talking about changing the relationship with fear and engaging that opportunity. So talking about how do we do that? How do we change? And so we're talking about what I call shift state. However you want to look at it, however you want to call it, the idea of being able to be in one state and then finding a way that enables you to immediately shift to a higher vibrational place, which changes again your perspective, your opportunities, and your potential all change in that moment when you allow that to take place. Similar to the story that Cyndi was sharing before the break. When you create that distance, you create a space for the universe, or however you call it, God, Jesus, whoever, to flood through you to create. So it's just more of you having access to you, ultimately, is how I feel about it. But I like to use breath. I find breath is a very powerful tool that works very well. But there's a ton of things. Cyndi was mentioning about singing, hiking. There's so many different ways that we can alter that relationship. But the biggest piece of it is being conscious that you're having the experience and then being conscious of making a choice in that moment of consciousness. What do you think about that?
It is. It's about being conscious. So, and some people, I was one of these people, do not know they're scared. I grew up in one of those households that was a scary household. I mean, it was scary. And that wasn't always scared. You know, when I could get away to the swamp or run with my dogs or do this or that or read my books, I wasn't scared. But I emerged from childhood pretty much always in panic to the extent I did not know I was in panic all the time. So I had to learn tools like breathing and how to self-calm and how to use magnesium and how to eat right and, you know, kind of how to talk to myself differently before I even could recognize at a certain point I was in fear. And then, like I did talk about earlier, when I do feel fear now, I know it's there. I know it's whatever. I just say, this is a sensation. How am I to be with this? And that helps me. That's my way of separating out from it. And then I can go to my intuition. I can go to a higher place. And the other tool that I use is I ask myself, so what would you do, Cyndi, if you weren't scared? Like, how would you act? How would you think? How would you talk? I have a funny story for that one. So when my son last year went back to college, I mean, and he had been there all month and, you know, for months, and I sleep downstairs with the dogs, and we can always hear him walking across our ceiling, his floor. And he's 230 pounds. He's a baseball pitcher. So you can hear him walking.
Moving.
Like, boom, boom. It's like the abominable snowman. Boom, boom. You hear the fridge. I mean, you hear everything. But he had gone back to school, not this last summer, but the year before. And so there should be no noises upstairs. So he'd been gone like a week or two, and we hear the same kind of sounds that he would make. He's not home. And I wake up, the dogs wake up. I'm like, oh, thank God the dogs are here. They can go figure out what this is, because I felt panicky. And they looked at me like, well, we're not going up there. They refused to go up the stairs to see what it was.
Oh, gosh.
They wouldn't go. And so I had to say, so what if I wasn't scared? What would I do? I said, well, I'd just go upstairs and see. Well, there was nothing there. Right. Of course. But that little trick works for me. What if I wasn't scared?
I like that a lot. I want to take a moment, if we could, and I don't know if we have a difference of viewpoint here or not, because I don't know that we've really talked about it, but I want to talk about the distinction between the survival mechanism and fear just for a second, because to me, when the survival instinct kicks in, the survival instinct actually drives us into a superhuman state, which is different than what fear does. Fear is a degenerating energy, so it doesn't amp you up, it drags you down. Where in my experience with the survival piece, so in the story that you're telling, you address the fear because that's what's present. There may still be a survival thing, but that's a whole different experience in the body. That's a whole different energy set. That's a whole different release of chemicals than what fear does. And I want to create that distinction so that people aren't marrying the two together, because the survival instinct is there for a very specific reason, to keep the body on the planet. Fear has nothing to do with that.
Well, and that's a really good distinction, because I usually use the terms healthy fear for the survival instinct and unhealthy fear for the not survival instinct. So we have different terms, and I'm going to go with yours. So fear from now on is what I call the unhealthy stuff. Survival, that's the stuff I think we do have to pay attention to. What do I do?
Absolutely.
Forward, backward, to the side. So again, it's definitions, and it's coming to the place so each person can kind of marry with their own way of distinguishing those two in the moment when they need to also.
Yeah, and again, it's not about there's a wrong perspective. It's just about understanding that as long as it falls within the understanding, that's what's going to help you take steps forward. And that's really what we're all about. We want to provide this foundation for people to step into their own transformation, to step into their own process in a conscious way, because you're evolving whether you like it or not. You're evolving whether you feel good about how you're evolving or not. It's happening. I think we were laughing before we got on the show about when God says something's going to happen, and my thing was, I'm just going to go with it. And it's like, yeah, you don't have a choice. It's like God said, here's where you're going, and you either go gently or you go the long way. However you want to go is okay, but you're going to go.
You're going to take it. You're going to be going there, right?
You're going. I'll remember that that's going to stick with me forever. I love that. But so once we shift that relationship with fear, so we've now taken a little time to talk about how you can do that, but understand that we were talking about some potentially bigger fears or stuff that doesn't seem as consequential as, relationships and jobs and family and performance and worthiness and layer upon layer upon layer of the things and the beliefs that we build up over our lives. Let me be clear that it doesn't matter. It does not matter. The tools work at every level. The tools work all the time. And it's just a matter of being conscious of what the sourcing of the fear is, which when you give yourself distance in your field around that is when you can come to clarity or understanding about that. I often tell my clients that the thing about fear and releasing energy is that if there's something you need to know, you'll be left with an impression. It's your energy. Something will stick with you to give you clarity. If you get nothing, then there was nothing to know. It was some piece of junk or debris hanging around in your field that really wasn't relevant, but you were holding on to, and now you're not. So now you have space and you have a place in your energy that can fulfill with a more positive expression. But and again, that again goes to what we talked about before, which is that now you've shifted fear, you've opened yourself up to an opportunity base instead of a fear base.
Exactly. And sometimes when people are going through like a deep transformational process, their old issues have been triggered, they're working they're coming up with healthier, more true beliefs, that are truths, not just opinions, and that stuff's working through. They get nervous about the process because old stuff, as it's leaving, sometimes it reverberates. And I always remind people, what you want, if you have to refill it, don't worry about it because it's leaving. That's different than if you're bringing it in, like let it up and let it go. And, that's even another technique that I use, if I'm dealing with like an unhealthy fear, for myself or somebody, or if it's somebody else is going through something, I say, open your arms wide. Let it out. And when you open your arms like that, somebody can take your hand. Usually we contract.
Yes.
You've got that bad stuff, not healthy stuff happening. We go like this, and nobody can hold your hands that way. So I'll physically throw my arms out like that. And all of a sudden, you do have a shift in perspective. You're open. You can feel help that's there, whether it be concrete or spiritual help. It comes.
Yes, energy in, energy out. I say that to my clients all the time. Understanding that when you shift your vibration and those things are starting to shake loose, those beliefs that don't resonate at the place that you're going, it's energy in, energy out. It came in with an emotion. The reason it's stuck there is because there was an emotion attached to it. So if it's leaving, chances are good you're going to experience the emotion again. That's okay. Don't attach a story to the feeling. The story is what kept it there. So if you don't attach the story, the emotion and the energy leave, and it's gone, forever gone. You will not draw it again as long as you don't attach the story to whatever it is.
Yes, let the story, remember the story, and then let the story go. And write a new one. That's
exactly.
Get out, Harold, and did you ever read those books, Harold and the Purple Crayon? Isn't it where he's drawing a world with a purple crayon? I think of that. I try to be Harold sometimes. It's like, what am I going to draw? Rather than, what's happened before. History never repeats itself. It doesn't repeat. It never repeats. So draw what you want to walk through. Draw the new door and start walking through it.
That's awesome. That is such a great way to look at it. There are so many, the joys of an opportunity-based experience. Once you've experienced that, will feed you, but will also draw you forward, as it were, I think, in a way that when you begin to tap into and experience what happens when you open to the potential that is available to you, it's unlike anything you've ever experienced. And I'm sure Cyndi can attest to in our personal evolution, sometimes it's hard to talk about the depth of the experience because it's so profound. And how do you put into words when you walk outside and you just happen to turn and you see the tree in the sky and a bird that comes here, and the way the leaves are moving create this picture that satisfies every cell in my body in that moment, right? That doesn't occur when we're in a fear-based experience. It's that opportunity, it's that potential, it's that connection that opens us to all that we really are, and all that we get to understand even more profoundly about how we are nothing but energy and love, and energy and energy and energy. And the more you get it, the greater it feels, the more extraordinary things show up, the more extraordinary serendipity and connection and power and all of it. It doesn't mean you don't experience bad days. It doesn't mean you don't experience things that you don't necessarily want to, but your approach to them vastly changes because you don't react to all of them in fear. And I'm going to use that as my closing, and I would love you to give a closing in this conversation as well.
Well, I love the way you talk about going outside and there's the sunrise, the sunset, those perfect moments. And there isn't a way to communicate it, but you know what? We communicate it anyway. I mean, don't we, Jim? Because when we're feeling love, when we're expanding with love, when we're bringing it in, that for me, that's really all that there is then. And whatever else that lingers, it just sort of washes away. So I just think it's good for both of us to just keep reminding people that's not just our potential, that's our birthright. That's the promise our soul made to itself to come to earth. That's it. That's the promise we gave ourselves. So let's deliver on our own promise.
That, I don't know if you saw the breath that just coursed through me as you said that. That's for me an indication of truth when it comes through, as my body goes, yes. And that was a huge yes. Cyndi, I can't thank you enough for being here. This has been a joyful conversation. I hope we get to do it again at some point in the future. There's so many things that I think that could be talked about. But thank you for coming on Adventures in Truth and sharing your truth and getting to share our truths together has been just lovely and wonderful. And I thank you for that.
It's delightful. We'll do it again. Thank you.
Excellent. Guys, thank you for being a part of Adventures in Truth. Head over to www.adventuresintruth.com to learn more about me if you want to work with me. Pick up my book, Cyndi, at cindydale.com. You can learn all about the incredible things she's doing and the amazing books I was exploring yesterday. And we look forward to seeing you the next time we're here. Please like us, share us, tell everybody about us, get our books, and live your best life. Let's do that. But thank you all for being here, and we'll see you again very soon. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Adventures in Truth podcast. Thank you for joining us. We'd love to connect with you. Please like us on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube. To learn more about Jim's book, Fear is a Choice, Unraveling the Illusion of Our Separation from Love, or to book a session with Jim, you can email us at adventuresintruth@gmail.com, or you can join us on the web at www.adventuresintruth.com. Tune in next time for another great Adventures in Truth podcast.